So there's a thing that we have to see the difference between. There's quantity and there's quantity demanded and there's quantity supply. And there's this very useful rule that where a quantity supplied exceeds the quantity demanded, this is the situation that's called oversupply. And when the quantity demanded is higher than or exceeds the quantity supply, this is called a shortage. It means there's less of that thing produced than people really want to buy. And so let me show this with the case of price floors and price ceilings, because this is a very easy way to show it. So we just did price ceilings and price floors anyway. We have this standard supply and demand graph. Then we have quantity right here, quantity, and we have price right here. Now this is not really like how, but once again. Okay, so this is our equilibrium. Let me say, to just enumerate it, this is for example 3 at quantity and 3 at price is just symmetrical, a right angle right here and so on. And so and this is lines both at the same slope. Just imagine that, just the opposite slope, of course, you know. And what this is positive slope, this is the negative slope of that, and this is our equilibrium. Now, when price ceiling and price floor is introduced, and if you don't know what that is, definitely check out my previous video where I talked about it and I explained both price ceiling and price floor. Basically, when you have an equilibrium, you have a certain price that is connected to the equilibrium price, right? And we see at equilibrium the price is free, so our equilibrium free market natural price is free, and quantity is the natural equilibrium quantity is free also. Just happens to be so I draw it so and I just marked it and wrote it that way. Now, when a price ceiling is announced, that means that the price is forcibly pushed down, and when a price floor is announced, our price is forcibly pushed up. Okay, so let's say it's got price ceiling at 2 and price floor at 4, for example. Those are opposites of each other. Price ceiling and price floor are opposites of each other, so they not usually at the same time. Doesn't make sense for different products, but for the same product, no. So when we have our natural quantity and price, there's no disparity between quantity demanded, because you see both lines intersect at this point. That's why it's at an equilibrium, and that's where the quantity supplied, which you trace back by taking that point of the supply curve, whatever point you choose, and then you go down to this axis of quantity and look all quantity free. Now you do the same for demand at that point, and you see, because they cross again, the quantity demanded is the same as quantity supplied at the equilibrium. But whatever other point we choose, for example this one, okay, whatever other price we choose, then it's going to intersect the two curves at different points, and then the quantities are going to be different. Now, this is exactly what the price floor and price ceiling does. So price floor right here, what it does is basically now quantity, let's see, demanded, quantity demanded is, let's say, 2.5, and quantity supplied, so quantity, let's say price floor, quantity demanded is, and this way is going to be nicer. Quantity demanded is let's say 2.5, and quantity supplied is, let's say 3.5. Okay, so what does this mean? Quantity supplied exceeds the quantity demanded. That means more is supplied by the producers than the consumers are willing to buy. And so, because quantity supplied exceeds quantity demanded, we have oversupply. Okay, so this is our first important thing of the video. Now, the second one is illustrated with a price ceiling. That means price is pushed down from the natural equilibrium. Now, we get from price 3 to price 2. Again, we get an intersection of the new price and the supply and demand curves. Let me delete the previous ones not to confuse it, because they should not belong to the same diagram anyway, as they're opposites of each other, but it was just for convenience that it was drawn like this. Now, we see the new price 2 intersects supply at here, and it intersects demand at here. So this is where this is quantity, at least we can trace back the quantity supplied, and also the here from here we go, because we now just care about the price ceiling, sorry, just the price ceiling right here, quantity demanded. And so now quantity demand, now the opposite happens. Quantity demanded is higher than quantity supplied, because for example, let's say quantity demanded here was 3.2, and in case here they don't have the same angle relative to same absolute value angle relative to this equilibrium price line, then quantity supplied, let's say, is, I don't know, 2.3. But in any case, quantity supplied is now lower than the quantity demanded, and that is called a shortage. Okay. So this turned out to be a very messy set of notes and ideas and so on. But just to make this all clear, just remember one thing. Whenever we have our curve, you can trace back the quantity demanded and the quantity supplied from the graph, right? Because this is your quantity, just go down from that point and you'll see the quantity demanded, quantity supplied. In the case we have a set price, that's where you're going to choose the point. You know, you don't choose just like an arbitrary point like here and now it's short. Of course, that is. But usually the price is like a straight horizontal line cutting through both curves. Then you see at price 2, it just happens to cut the supply at here and cut the demand at here. Now, you just go down to this axis, this is the axis showing the quantity, and the entire quantity axis is this, but the quantity demanded, quantity supplied, a little different thing, I explained in a different previous video, is what you can trace back on the axis exactly. As you see free here, imagine that this might be 2.3 and this might be 3.2, doesn't matter. Exactly, if you have a correctly, exactly enumerated axis, you will get a more exact result. But it does not really matter. The thing is, whenever quantity demanded, which you can trace back from these intersections, when quantity demanded is higher than quantity supplied, that is a shortage. It means people want more that is available. When quantity supplied exceeds quantity demanded, that means that there's an oversupply. Producers supply more than consumers are willing to buy.